All right, so the workshop is about to begin. Custos, we'll finish pulling your capsules here after it's finished, and let me know about those unpainteds that are lying open in the bin there. Whew. Fortunately, I'll start by this. World building for many people can be confusing, or you don't know where to begin, or how to create an interesting society wherever you need to be. This character randomizer, Nina, is proprietary to me. However, the original spreadsheet on which this is based is freely available as a pinned message on our Discord that you can download yourself. As are these worksheets. So, for example, we're going to have a settlement concept. It's in Table Talk, our general chat, Victor. You have to look in the pinned messages. Now, as we have already started to create some world last night with the autumn holidays that we made based off of 2 NPCs and 2 villains. There are some prompts that we already know that we can pre-fill in on our worksheet for this session. Ooh, pardon me. Now, if you know, for example, in Fernizard, you know you want it to be underground, you could go Underdark. And where I personally try and include 2 different terrain types, because it's a lot more interesting than just saying desert. Because there's something else, there's always something else is on the verge of something. A desert could be on the verge of a forest. A coast, or an equivalent like a shore or a great river, could be flowing through grasslands. An Arctic area could be a mountainous as well. And where you can find the 8 different choices are here with the Circle of the Land Druid. Now, this is a very nice reference. And you'll also see that these 8 terrain types extend to rangers. And so mechanically, if you go along these prompts, you can have characters that will interact with your setting that could have certain advantages or are just intrinsically linked to the setting because they learn their skills or their spells in that region. All right, Custos, can you send that to me in a DM, because I'm not going to be able to update the spreadsheet at the moment. Just send it in a private message, and I'll make sure that those names get on the spreadsheet. Now, this is normally where we would roll 2d8 to determine this, or in Fernizard, you have a character that for sure, you want Underdark, and it doesn't have to be the Underdark. In concept, you want it to be an underground society, which is fine. And I would even challenge you then to have another reference point or something kind of cool. Roll a d8. And so in Fernizard, would you type !1d8? And let's do an exercise with an underground society kind of on the side for you. So we know that you're going to have Underdark and what else? Stops on a 3. 1, 2, 3. Underdark and Desert. Now, as we're going through these other prompts to create our setting for our fall festival, I want you to consider what kind of a society would that be? Is it an underground area beneath a desert? Is it actually, is it underground, but there is just a lack of water or any kind of precipitation? So it is just an underground desert. For some reason, there's even no flowing water here. And so it's dry, it's dark, it's very perilous because of that. There's a lot of different ways you can take that prompt. There's an area like this IRL, Coober Petty in Australia. And all right, so in Fernizard, if you're playing along at home, look that up and you can use that as an IRL reference. An underground desert. Now for us, when we created our 4 characters, there's enough context clues through the random generation that there is a mountain for sure and grasslands for sure. As there's a distant mountain and a lot of farming is taking place in the rolling hills or even beyond the rolling hills from that mountain. So we didn't roll it, but we also did kind of randomly roll it because it's the result of random number generation. And this is one of the few channels where we absolutely love RNG. Cool, thank you, Custos. Now we're going to go over to the Dungeon Master's Guide. And in Fernizard, if you have the DMG, crack it open to page 18. I don't know why this is 16 here. Well, it says 16 because it talks about settlements. The chart in particular we're going to roll on is going to be on page 18. Nina, to help your anxiety, would you please type !1D100? Let's find out what kind of a government our mountainous grassland area has. You rolled a 13. It's a bureaucracy. Various departments compose the government, each responsible for an aspect of rule. The department heads, ministers, or secretaries answer to a figurehead autocrat or a council. You're fine, Custos, don't worry. And so, in Fernizard, you could very well do the same thing and find on a percentile. And if you don't have percentile immediately handy, you can feel free to type in !1D100 for your own purposes. All right, so we have a bureaucracy of dwarves and halflings. And that's going to be another autofill that we're going to find down here. Now we're going to page 108. When we're creating an area, again, whether it's a city, a county, a state, or a province, or even a country, I personally like including 2 monuments that are made by the residents, or former residents, and a weird locale. You know, 3 things that make the area notable in some way. And that can scale up or down depending on, do you just want a small farming village of 100 people? Or do we want to talk about a metropolis of 11 billion? We could still choose, like, we still say, all right, the 3 things that this place is known for. There could be more, but at least the 3 things are these. Makes me think of the government in a book series I read, where the government was a god emperor who had a huge bureaucracy under him to run his empire. Which book series are we talking about? Because that's a lot of them, Nina. Are you reading Horus Heresy? Are you... All right. So for our monuments here, Victor, would you please type !1D20? Stops on a 10. The first monument that is notable to this settlement is an intact statue of a silver pirate. Would you please type !1D4? Odds, it's a person. Evens, it's a deity. The vector, oh, airplane. Oh, they don't make movies like that anymore, Custos. Oh, I hope it got the job done, oh sheeps. All right, so silver is going for a 20 instead. Silver cannot be contained by a mere D4. So we stopped on evens, and so this is a statue of a deity. All right. Hey, GM Vault, welcome. Your punishment for being here and being friendly is I need you to type exclamation point 1d20 in order to generate another monument for us. Now serve your sentence. What? 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 Okay. He's rebelling. Well, O'Sheeps, are you willing to jump on this grenade? O'Sheeps, will you do the honor of rolling a d20 for me? Stops on an 18. And also an intact circle of standing stones. Excellent. You know, considering there's druids in the area, this is very eerily, it writes itself-y. All right, Dysfemist, will you please type exclamation point 1d20 to determine a weird locale? No, you're fine, Silver. I was just looking for odds or evens. But we don't normally roll a bunch of d4s, so I figured why not mix it up. Rolls on a 10. A permanent portal to another plane of existence. And you know, if this isn't still eerily accurate to the characters we made last night, this could very well be... Remember how we have the Dia de los Muertos? A variant that we're going to be constructing? Maybe this is where the Dragonborn takes someone in order to deliver them into the afterlife. Yeah, Nina's being pretty spicy tonight, huh? You're fine, Silver Pirate, don't worry. Where high-impact hand-holding is rampant. Hand-hold. Double-hold. Multi-hold. Monster hold. Old. Excellent. This is very creepy that this is happening as it is. So, I'm gonna switch up the music, everyone. I'm gonna do something that's a little haunting. Get a little festive, a little seasonal. We're now going to go to the settlement page in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And are you following along? Is this helping you at all in Fernizard? Do you have questions as we're going? And Gray, or Triple Gray? Gray, 14? Thank you very much for the follow. All right, you're doing well. So next up, as we're making these are lines in the sand, which is perfectly fine. We're staking out our territory, and we're gonna say, you know what? If these are our prompts, we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna improvise. Now we know that we have dwarves and we have halflings, and so let's determine which is going to be the dominant race and which is going to be the minority race. Arid temperatures of the desert, in my case, force the people down under it. Okay, so they still go up to the surface, kind of like a dune style existence, perhaps. You know, maybe there's minerals or, you know, there's things that they need, but then they retreat back underground. I think there's, in Chronicles of Riddick, there's like a prison planet like that too. Yep, even shorties, odd shorties. So Cybernetic Illithid, will you please roll a d4, and if we get odds, we're going to go dwarves. Evens, halflings. Evens are halflings. Dominant race are halflings. Minority race are dwarves. Now, normally in Fernizard, we have a way to randomly determine our races that that would be more prominent. This doesn't mean that, you know, you have to have a multiracial city, or it doesn't mean that there's only two. This is just simply saying that by political influence or number of people, dominant and minority don't always mean one is in charge over the other. But if we come to the races in the player's handbook, or let's say your dungeon master allows you to play with Volo's Guide to Monsters, you know, on our worksheet we can add monsters or races, and then we just roll whatever we need to in order to randomly determine that. Due to the prompts that we made yesterday, we know that there's dwarves and we know that there are halflings. Nope, it's too late, GM Vault. You lost your dice rolling privileges. Now, how are they getting along? What's going on, if only in this moment when we find them? And Raven, would you please type exclamation point 1d20? Well, you can always make one with Knowles, Victor. But as we're playing with the player's handbook, there's no Knowles. Stops on a 2. There is harmony. Harmony between the halflings and dwarves. Now, who is this figurehead ruling over the bureaucracy? This ruler has a status of some kind. So let's find out what's going on. Infernizard, will you please roll a d20? Exclamation point 1d20. Stops on a 5. All right, the ruler is respected, fair, and just. All right, what is something notable about this location where we're going to be having our harvest? A notable trait is going to be a d20 roll. Free the 15 plus movements, accepting applications. I mean, in a bureaucracy, that's kind of what you have to go through, right? Nina, will you please type exclamation point 1d20? Stops on a 12. It is a center of trade for a specific good. Now, is this specific good edible plants like grains or gourds? Is it sheep for wool or meat? Are we talking Settlers of Catan? Do they have a nearby quarry or a clay mine or something along those lines? Are they weaponsmiths? Or if not weaponsmiths, have the dwarves turn their hammers to make excellent farming implements? Now, this city or this town that we're making is known for something. And in particular, it's known for what? Oh, sheeps? I don't want you to be offended that people may actually eat sheep. So let's distract you by having you roll a d20. Stops on a 12. It is known for gambling. Hey, Grimvex. Grimvex, now that you're here, I'm giving you homework. Ha ha ha. Grimvex, please type exclamation point 1D20. Stop. Jeez. You can't breathe soda, everyone. Stops on a 15. Its current calamity is it. Oh, it's on the brink of war. Uh-oh. Brink of war. Oh, jeez. It's a lot of rolling, but it's all going somewhere, PV. All right, Custos Lupus. There is a prominent religious building in town, and I would like you to roll 1d20 to find out what it is. Welcome to Knollburger, home of the Knollburger. Can I take your order? It could be a Civil War silver pirate. Yeah, because our prompt is it's brink of war. What did I do? Exclamation point 1d20. Stops on a 9. A temple to a good or neutral deity. Now, that may very well be one of our spirits, or even a temple to all of them. Yes, this is the Dungeon Master's Guide, Raven. All right, PV. I know it's a lot of rolling, but I'm gonna give you a responsibility here. I need you to type exclamation point 2d20, as we're gonna find the name of the popular tavern in town. All right, it stops on 16 and 1. So the popular tavern in this farming village is called the Wandering Eel. And then lastly, what kind of a tavern is it? And Raven, would you please type exclamation point 1d20, and let's find out what kind of a place this tavern is that's so prominent in our farming village of dwarves and halflings. Yes, we're building a settlement, Grimvex. Raven rolls, lands on a 10. Uh-oh. This is actually a Thieves Guild hangout. Shipping is included with the box purchases, PV. Hey, Tesla, welcome. All right, excellent. So we have prompts now, and by the way, Infernizard, were you able to follow along? Did you make your own notes? Do you have any questions on us setting down our stakes and now being able to explore the culture that has been built up? Doing great. Awesome. Awesome. And the reason why I go specifically for a tavern in a religious building is because we are social creatures, and so both a temple or a lack thereof, and of course doesn't mean that this is the only tavern in town. They could have competition. And in fact, Infernizard, type exclamation point 2D20 as an example. But we're saying like the main tavern in town, the popular one that's like all the tourists that come to Farming Village, Farming Village 3 that we're making, are going to end up here. And so for you, Infernizard, a popular tavern, and this could even be the rival tavern in our city here, or our farming village, 8-3. So that is the Howling Dwarf. The Howling Dwarf, everyone, is the rival establishment. And now, Infernizard, will you please give me an exclamation point 1D20? What kind of an establishment is the Howling Dwarf? Cybernetics calling a 20. Stops on a 12. It's an upper-class dining club called the Howling Dwarf. And so you might say, hold on, that is ridiculous. How can you have an upper-class establishment called the Howling Dwarf? You know, shouldn't it be the gilded knife or the succulent morsel or something like that? Why can't the dwarf howl that the food is so good? You know, you just chalk it up to the local culture. The Howling Dwarf could simply be the local nickname because on the plank outside, it's a picture of a dwarf, you know, kind of like a big pile of spaghetti, you know, with a fork and a spoon going. And so the Howling Dwarf isn't the name of the establishment, but everyone calls it the Howling Dwarf because the dwarf is painted on the shingle, looks like... Hey, Kitty Bird, welcome. The dwarf takes a bite of some good quiche and howls, "Yee-haw! This is gonna be some good chow." Snobby Dwarf Frat House, that's the first thing that comes to mind. And so Grimvex, that can still be entertained in your iteration of this city. Perhaps the noble dwarves in the town come from a long line of berserkers. I mean, the amount of berserker barbarians we rolled, Disfemist, was uncanny. And so it could actually be because of that. Or it says upper class dining club. And of course, club is implying a membership of some kind. Can you only be a dwarf? Now, I mean, there is a prompt here, caters to a specific race or guild. But what could the club be? Is it just, I mean, anyone can join, but it's like Sam's Club. You got to pay a membership fee. Or, you know, a lot of golf clubs will have a non-golfing membership fee. So every month, if you don't spend, I don't know, like $30, they'll charge you $30. But if you go and eat, it counts as the $30. So you have access to the golf club. You can hobnob. You can do all this. You can eat some food for this sort of guaranteed amount that you're going to be spending there. And, you know, just because dwarves are the minority race. Oh, hey, Coffee Cat, welcome. Welcome. Coming off of a caffeine fix, are we? So just because the dwarves are the minority race in this setting doesn't mean that they're not the ones that have all the money or a lot of political influence. Dwarves might be the bureaucrats. And so the halflings are the majority of the population, but the ones who actually get the stuff done, or at least the desk work, are the dwarves. And that's perfectly fine. Maybe the Howling Dwarf sources all its ingredients from druids? Ah, so... yeah, so you have like a little, whatever, like a sprouting acorn on the bottom of the, you know, certified druid organic or something like that. Well, hey, Cybernetic, hang on to that idea, because we are going to be making Vineyard Country. Remember, they have a wine festival in the autumn. One of our druids is a sociopath, and the other's a good Grim Reaper. So you have a good diversity of druids. As a person who plays Dwarf Fortress and is making a setting inspired by it, I'm offended by these minority dwarves. You are welcome to be, Victor. GM Vault saying a club is a thick stick used for beating things. Raven says the dwarf on the sign looks to be doing a battle cry at his meal. But yeah, most of the old churches made their own beer. It's why we have a champagne. Yes. Yeah. All right, so here we'll also make a so the Wandering Eel, like that's everyone has been to the Wandering Eel. Everyone. But the dwarves all hang out at the Howling Dwarf. There we go. Coffee raid. Welcome, Coffee. Now with these prompts, we can take the content that we already knew we're going to be working with. And in Fernizard, if you already have an idea of the content, at least some of it, now that we have the shape, we have the outline of the area that we want to make, we can start filling in the details, and it will very quickly take on a life of its own. One panel in on page says, are you still working even though you're not broadcasting? Or are you only broadcasting your comic progress, Coffee Cat? It's like Caesar's Palace and the Venetian. Everyone goes to Caesar's, but if you have money, you end up at the Venetian. Come here. There we go. All right. So within the boundaries that we have set here, and VT, if you want me to whatever, accent it a different way, let me know. VT, thank you for the follow. Gotcha, Coffee. Well, have a great night. It was fun watching you while I could before I went live, and congrats on the progress. Yeah, Silver, maybe the Howling is just a squeaky door that everyone just loves. When we take a look at the NPCs and the villains that we have created, let's bear in mind. All right, these are the NPCs. So the people who live here in this kind of environment, in this kind of a culture, believe in representations of holidays that have taken the form of these NPCs. So we have a male stout halfling barbarian who is an urchin. You know, grew up poor and hungry. Grew up maybe with no direction. Did some things that he regrets in his youth. And then he became strong by eating food. And the food is a symbol of the unification between the dwarves and the halflings, which is how we get stout halflings. We have mountain dwarves and we have lightfoot halflings. And you pineapple pen them together, and they become stout halflings. And so we have this personification of sort of a Thanksgiving and a Nori festival, or just tailgating in general. And we have a person who believes in strength in sports. Is a lot like Festivus for the rest of us, where there's feats of strength conducted. There's a good meal that you have with friends or family. And we also seek a kind of forgiveness for who we were in the past, so we can be stronger and better now and into the future. We also made this white dragonborn druid. And of course, this is where we get the mountain, because we actually had 2 Circle of the Land druids. Of all the combinations, we ended up getting the same one it was meant to be. Who is a cavalry soldier, or was, before taking on the role of being an usher of the dead. And not just of the dead, but even those who want to be reunited on this one day of the dead. And you know what? He's drawn to a special place. That special place is probably this permanent portal to another plane of existence. And so you can see where the content that we made before is now becoming linked and building a story, is building content. And now we can think about things in more concrete terms than we have before. Yeah, Custos, yeah, I'm just that good. When we look at our villains, our villainous representations of fall, we have this silver dragonborn that's a raider or a ravager, who we said, comes down off the mountain bringing frost with him. And if you don't get your crops out of the fields in time, they're going to be frozen over. And to do so, you become cursed. That his minions, we rolled a pirate, but that again could be, inland pirates like Huns or Dothraki. Someone who comes riding down from the mountain and will reap whatever's left in the fields and cover them in frost. It has a tale all his own, even one that's tragic, that's turned him into more of a bitter figure, and hence a villain. If you don't work hard, if you don't get your fields cleared by the first frost, then bad things will happen. Not on the keyboard, bud. He's laying on his side. Come here, bud. Gotta move my keyboard. I don't have a lot of space on my desk. This poor desk. It's so crowded. It's also why I personally wanted to hold off a little bit on finishing popping those capsules, Custos, because I'm going to need some room to do that. And I didn't get my cuddle time with Raichi yet, and I knew he was going to want to jump up here and flop on his side and get some pets. Yeah, kind of like a Grinch. Now, our other villain is a green dragon that was bent on domination and plunder, who was also a berserker barbarian. However, she's a charlatan, so is she who she says she is? He? Really a dragon? A person pretending to be a dragon, or a dragon who polymorphs into a person? She represents kind of a temperance, not an avoidance of alcohol, as this is the person to whom we consider when we have our wine festival, our wine drinking festival in the autumn. And so you have someone who can get drunk, who can get rowdy, who makes poor decisions. But you also have someone who can be bolstered and fortified by wine and by combat and storytelling. Being braggadocious while you're drinking and you're around other people. So she's villainous because she's not afraid to bloody someone's nose or start a bar fight or make poor decisions otherwise without considering other people's bodies or feelings, but she's not super nefarious as a murderer. It says murderous stabbing. This could very well end up being an allegory for what happens if you drink too much or you let green or greed. Actually, I typed greed accidentally. Last night, or it might have been GREE, and I was about to hit D, but I'm like, oh, Greed Dragon, that works out really well. So we have this dragon, which can play into the whole why the dwarves left the mountain to go out in the fields. We had very strong mountain dwarves, and then they are living out in the pastoral, the rolling foothills, and so they became hill dwarves with the help of the Lightfoot Halflings, who had kind of an agrarian society, but maybe were, you know, they're kind of lazy about things, or because they're not particularly strong. They were more foragers, maybe hunter-gatherers that just lived in the area. And then you put them together. You put a Lightfoot halfling and a mountain dwarf together, and you are going to come up with stout halflings and hill dwarves. Hey, Trustaflump, welcome. And so how does all this now play into the setting where we're going to be having these holidays take place? And we can tie each element in. Should that be Reaper, Zell, or do you want that to be Repairs the Third? How would you like me to pronounce your name? Call you Rep? Okay. Welcome, welcome. And if you're new to D&D, you are in a good spot for it. If you have questions on how to play, make a character, what the heck are you doing? You know, an intact statue of a deity, what does that mean? Or what's this PHB, or what's this DMG? We're here to answer your questions. Reppers the Third is Noise. Well, I'll call you Rep if that's what you want me to do, but I'm glad I was able to at least hit the Reppers the Third. So in this society, halflings and dwarves, they live in harmony. The ruler of the bureaucracy is respected, fair, and just. This is also going to be a center. It's a center of a trade of a specific good. If we have a wine festival, there's a very good chance that the center of trade for a specific good is going to be our wine. Yeah, we're doing some storytelling workshop. A couple other questions to consider then. This place is also known for its gambling, which might also be why why the main inn in town is a thieves guild, where people pass information, pickpockets, or otherwise they place bets on sporting events, which is also why sports. Again, now we're having what we just made feed back into our already solid idea to really link them together. And so there might be a lot of gambling on sports or the outcomes of crops. Look at this. An aspect of the stock market was invented in Holland that was based on tulip prospecting, and people would put money down on different tulip hybrids and crops that wouldn't even be planted for another 2 or 3 years. In fact, there's a cool board game about that too. What makes the wine special? Is it just good, or are you going to roll for a status effect? Lots of ways to play with just a little side thing. This can really be whatever we want to do. This could be a grape wine. This could be, what if we make a cider? Cider's kind of like a wine. And so maybe there's just apple orchards as far as the eye can see. This could be mead. So what if the rolling hills, there's a bunch of bee colonies, and so they go out and they harvest the honey, and then they make an exquisite mead from a stream that comes down from the mountain, and that's probably where the eels are as well. Because if our major tavern is called the Wandering Eel, let's tie that into something significant. Maybe if the player pays more gold, they can get a certain effect, like an attack or defense boost. Well, mechanics, we can discuss mechanics, though how would you present something like that in a storytelling setting? How would you represent that with what we're trying to build in the world first that can then be translated into mechanics later? You just pull off the wild magic table. So you drink their mead and you explode in a fire. No, Rep, don't apologize. You're new here. You're fine. You're excited. I want you to be engaged with this workshop. If you have ideas or questions, blurt them out. It's absolutely fine. The hobby as a whole, let alone this channel or who we are and what we do, we live to meet new people in the channel, and especially those who are new to D&D. You know, Nina's saying Applejack would be proud because you want an apple orchard, so maybe they make a hard apple cider. In fact, you could combine them together. And so if we're making a map here, there's an area where they raise bees, and the bees help pollinate the grapes, and or something else, peaches. I mean, pears. Yeah, we could make a pear wine. We could make a rice wine, a plum wine. You know, whatever we would like to do. It doesn't just have to be grapes. And bees are always useful when you're trying to pollinate. Or again, it could be a cider, something else that we crush and ferment. Side note about the Wild Magic table, it has a decently alright chance of going funny, wrong, or hilariously wrong. If you have a minute or two, it's publicly available and has some giggle-worthy things, yes. So people here love sports, they love to drink, they gamble. However, there is this brink of war. It's the current calamity. Something's going on that is going to be tearing them apart, or a confrontation. And maybe there are worms in the apples, and the worms enter the brains of people who eat the apples, and the brain gets transformed into mind flayers, and the mind flayers really love apples. Hey, the brink of war could be that people are starting to undergo seramorphosis. And you know, there's a war a-brewing because there's some people who are messing with the economy and the drink and the sports. What if the bees were a very small species of humanoid bugs? Yeah, so they could be, so maybe it's Fey mead. And so there's actually a little sprite colony, and the sprites actually work the orchard. And so you have a bunch of little fairies, brownies, and sprites that are actually out there, and they are working on behalf of, you know, the dwarves are the medium-sized creatures here. Then we get to the small creatures of the halflings, who work under the dwarves, and who would work under the halflings? The tiny fae. And the bees are working with the mind flayers. Trust-a-Flump, have you been watching a lot of X-Files lately? I'm onto you. I'm onto you, Trust-a-Flump. Someone unleashed a horde of intellect devourers, and they were made to believe they needed to make wine. Sorry, I had thought I felt something, piece of dinner here. But this is the beauty, Rep, Infernizard. There we go, Trust-a-Flump. D&D time mode activated. Blah. The imagination and creativity you unleash after only a couple prompts is absolutely amazing. Now, I know gnolls were brought up. Gnolls could very well be a brink of war. What is concerning are people. They do live in harmony, and I know that a civil war was brought up. Yes, D&D time does D&D stuff too, especially... Now, I hear a nasty rumor that D&D time welcomes new players and can help teach them how to play and have fun with other people who are also new. Now, that's the rumor. I try not to spread rumors around here, but you know what? I gotta speak up about this. I gotta blow the whistle. Yeah, what is this nonsense? Maybe someone's messing with the wine and the war's around the corner. Is the gossip true? Click and find out. You won't believe what happens. We only eat nails on our channel and stomp on Legos. Click this link. Your flump will be furious if you do. What if the bees had a civil war with the dwarves and lost, forcing the bugs to work for dwarves? If you want supernatural bees, of course. Of course. From the lore that we were creating, this could be an interesting concept that would play kind of to Civil War. If we said that the dwarves fled the mountain because of draconic goings-on, what if dwarves from the mountain are leaving the mountain, and these could either be dwarves or dwarves, maybe Duragar, maybe seramorphosized dwarves that were holdovers from the old days, and now under the command of Illithids under the mountain. And so they actually have to fight the people who they were in the past. And if you're talking about storytelling, thematic storytelling is universal, is something that can speak to people of all cultures. And a look at who we were in the past to gauge who we were, where we come from, where are our roots then or now. A conflict like this, where you have these old holdovers of halflings and dwarves, of mountain dwarves and lightfoot halflings, that are invading from for a nefarious reason, this now unified community of hill dwarves and stout halflings, as they have all come to become, sort of intermarried, or they share a lot of traits now together to make an almost unified single race. Maybe anthropomorphic lemons pretending to be dwarves because the bees don't like citrus fruits. This cannot end well. D&D time? I don't need to tell you this. This is when we have magnificent ideas. When things that we wouldn't think of otherwise, when we're supposed to have a clear head, just emerge. You're very welcome, D&D time. PV asks, what do all minis in the box mean? So PV, if you sponsor a box, there's two different prices. The first is for a first dibs pull. So I'll show you all 4 figures and you get your choice of one of them first. And that includes shipping. Otherwise, if you pay the higher amount, then you get all 4 figures in the box. No questions asked. So here now we have our setting. In fact, we could even go into MS Paint and quickly do a mock-up, a fun map that would get the idea across to players. But before I go into MS Paint, I want to wrap up this section, this brainstorming. I think there's a lot of great ideas and things we can use now when we're creating our autumnal holidays based on our NPCs and now the setting. He lies, you're going to ask questions. All right, so everyone, I want you to, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Go get some chips and dip. Go, nuke up a can of soup. Take a little bit of a walk. And when we come back, I would like to go off of the information that we've talked about and we've built together. And using a brand new worksheet that I came up with for this session, we are going to make a holiday for each of the NPCs we generated, as it could be extrapolated also by the customs, foods, and everything that we've determined by now going and creating our settlement. So, 10 minutes, everyone, okay? Okay. I'll see you back here, and we'll make some holidays together.